Wanted. Motivated young professionals for a serious financial opportunity in the real estate market. Interested parties are invited to attend the Motivator convention at the Executive Inn on 2nd Avenue North. For the past several years, I've been hitting up this scam convention thing at the Executive Inn on weekends when I have nothing better to do. It's a great way to net free coffee and usually a decent sandwich bar. As hobbies go, it's an interesting one, to say the least. And the kind of person who seriously considers these cash grab money-making scams is usually a special mix of clever and stupid. It's like they're just smart enough to have an idea, but not smart enough to understand it. As terrible as it sounds, it's a pretty spot-on representation of the demographic. When I arrived at the Motivator convention, it was your standard fare, useless product scheme. There were a few true believers in blue blazers who gave testimonials of how the investment system worked for them, and a slimy salesman in a light gray suit peddling an energy supplement. I sat in the back with a composition notebook and spent the better part of an hour drawing a dragon with rollerblades for feet. Lunch came in the form of tossed salad and/or hamburgers with French fries. After washing down the glorified cafeteria food with some poorly mixed Kool-Aid, I stood up and grabbed my things. A guy in a blue blazer and salt and pepper slicked back hair pulled me aside and said, "I know your type. You're here for the free lunch and the pens. You should really stick around for the second half. It'll change your life." The older gentleman in the blue blazer stepped off to the side, and I started down the hallway. About halfway down the hallway, I heard his voice shout from behind me, "Hey, come here." The man walked up and handed me a $50 bill. As he put it in my hand, he said, "I bet you another $50 that by the end of this presentation, you're going to be begging to spend that $50 on the Motivator." I couldn't think of any conceivable reason as to why I would spend $1 on the Motivator, and the thought of another 50 sounded appealing enough to stick around, so I shuffled back into the main hall and sat in the back with my composition notebook and started shading in the scales on the dragon. The lights were lowered and a short film was started. A voiceover came on over the loudspeaker saying, "Please turn your attention to the screen at the front of the room." A gray Motivator logo slides onto the screen and a tidal wave sound effect plays over the speakers. A picture of the planet Earth starts spinning and quickly zooms all the way in on the convention center before a loud explosion plays for everyone to see. A deep male voice says, "Motivator." The man from the earlier presentation steps into the scene and says, "Welcome to the Motivator convention, and I'm here to talk about the Motivator Fund. But first, allow me to draw your attention to a delightful chemical compound known as phylloquinone. Phylloquinone is a water-soluble vitamin that functions as a blood thickener. Those of you who enjoyed lunch with us earlier today have consumed a fatal dose of warfarin, a blood thinner. But lucky for you, I have 10 doses of phylloquinone right here for the first 10 people who invest $50 or more in our product. The rest of you should probably seek medical attention." The room descended into chaos. Half of the attendees ran for the door only to find it locked. The other half stormed the stage. I noticed the man in the gray suit standing off to the side and walked up to him with cash in hand and received a syringe filled with a vitamin solution into my left arm. The man smiled and I stepped to the side as several more people swarmed the man with cash in hand. Everyone after the first 10 went out of their way to bribe him. Ultimately, the guy made off with several $1,000s. There might have been 30 people there, and one by one they started to fall down vomiting blood or blood coming out of their mouths. Hotel staff started loading them into wheeled bins and moving them out of the room. The nonchalance of the workers was enough for me to go from fearful to completely weirded out. I walked over to the door and it was unlocked. Out in the hallway, the older guy in the blue blazer walks up and says, "Looks like you owe me $50. I walked out into the parking garage and pulled my phone out to call the cops when I noticed a bunch of people laughing. I turned my head and saw the 10 or so dead attendees laughing and smoking cigarettes. I pulled one to the side and he let me in on the scam. Okay, I tell you, this shyster comes to our improv class and offers us free lunch and $10 to bite down on blood capsules and play dead at the end of a presentation. I did some quick math in my head and realized that for what it cost to rent the convention room and cater a lunch, he probably still turned a profit. I shook my head as I walked off. I made it about halfway to my car when I heard a familiar male voice yell, Hey, you owe me $50. I continued walking to my car as the man followed behind me and climbed into the driver's seat as he started pounding on the roof of my car. I want my $50, he shouted as I backed out and drove off. I went directly to the hospital and told them a little of what happened. And after running some tests on my blood, they couldn't find anything wrong with my blood work. I filed a report with the officer that sat in the emergency room and was heading out the door when an older gentleman in a blue blazer was wheeled in on a gurney. As I walked out of the door, I could hear him mumble, $50.